virtual machines on AWS or any other service, and OpenAI has talked about this, Apple talked about this, Google's talked about this. The way you would go about it is bring up a virtual machine that is encrypted, and then on the virtual machine, everything is unencrypted. It operates, and then when you shut the virtual machine down, it's re-encrypted. Therefore, only you have access to the thing that is being trained for you. Now, it is being operated for you on your behalf by someone else, but they can't spool it up without your key.
Right.
Unless they store your key. There's always, one-time. There's time-based encryption. There's a lot of other things you can do to mitigate around that too.
This raises the question, though, because we know that with AAMs, there's like a time it takes for it to be started up. LLMs, I mean.
Right? Yes, a long lead time, yeah.
Yeah, before you can even run it. So if you have that, isn't it going to be much slower?
Yes, if you have to do fine-tuning. But what's very interesting about the direction that everybody's going now with long context windows is, let me see if I can paint this picture. So traditionally, you needed your specific data that you wanted to fine-tune into a model to be actually trained into the model, right? But more and more now you have long context, and in that context you can do something called few-shot learning, where you give lots of examples, you provide the data in that token window itself, and in a system message or in a mini GPT or a gem or whatever you want to call it, and that is passed as initiation state to the first interaction with the model. And then all subsequent interactions already have that context preloaded into that instance, if you will. It's kind of like hitting the Mr. Mises box and having a textbook ready that the Mr. Mises is told to read, and then continue to have your conversation. And then when it's done with its task, it dies. And when you hit the Mr. Mises box again, it pops up and it reads the textbook and it continues. It's going to feel as if every time you press the button, you're getting a Mr. Mises that has intimate knowledge about what's in that textbook. And it could be personal, private information in there. But if somebody else hits the Mr. Mises button and they don't have the textbook, they can't access your data.
Do you mean kind of like the memories thing that OpenAI has, ChatGPT?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so personalization, memory, the fact that the textbooks are the only part that need to be kept private, not the Mr. Mises itself.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Yeah, so it's very interesting how this has gone about, right? So like, if you look at the core innovations in the paper, which there is one that is very promising, right? The GRPO one. The rest of them are just applications of known things, and then funny accounting, and the lack of scrutiny by any press, hedge funds, people who are trading clearly on this news. I don't know. It points to a weird bug in our markets, right? People are buying things they don't understand.
This kind of assumes that all of those GPUs are being bought just for training. They're also being bought for inference.
Correct. In fact, more and more are going to be bought for inference at this point.
Yeah. Unless we specifically get NPUs, I think, right? Or what were they called again? I forgot.
Oh, they're called different things by different companies.
Grok.
Yeah, there's
Grok.
Grok. They're ASICs.
Yeah.
So you have matrix multipliers, which I think is the best name from Apple. You have TPUs. You have Grok Q, not K, which was the transponder-specific chip, which is really sad that they didn't really get the money to make it. Yeah.
L seems 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Still can't go to sleep, Abby?
Hold on, wait. Why didn't they get the money?
I've really heard of them having raised all the money they needed to get out there and compete.
I'm listening to Elon's podcast about DeepSeek.
Oh, Grok.
Okay.
You want to listen to it?
Yes.
In a bit, hold on.
They're not going to be able to compete with TSMC, what the fuck?
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe they could if Well, okay, they won't be able to compete with TSMC. They may be able to compete with NVIDIA, but not TSMC. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I can't even get myself there. I was going to try. I don't know how it's 2 nanometers.
I don't
It's
know. We had Scoble on a few months ago, and he said that he actually interviewed the CEO of Grok, and he actually said that we have no plans of competing with NVIDIA on our training. We only plan on doing it on inference.
That's fair. That's fair. Training requires versatility. Inference does not, right? So the final output is always a transformer. The process is the only thing that's being changed rapidly right now. So if you made chips that were really, really good for PPO, and then suddenly GRPO became popular, all those chips wouldn't be useful. That's not entirely true. I'm exaggerating, but somewhat. So like that's, I think, a fair comparison is inferences, and that's where everybody's competing, but ironically everybody's buying from TSMC to get the basics,
Yeah.
and everybody's has slightly different designs. Yeah.
I want like a chip I can buy, like a graphics card, similar to like a graphics card that's just for fucking AI, where I can run like a full model that's not quantized at all on it.
Why don't you want it? So models aren't quantized anymore. I see this pop up a lot. I don't know how this got very viral lately. Nobody quantizes models anymore. They're just, you don't really need high precision, it turns out. You're better off having twice as many parameters at 8-bit or 16-bit than having 16 or 32-bit.
Yeah, but
You
they
can think
still
of it like,
quantize. Well, no, the people still quantize it to run it on their own PCs if they don't have enough.
oh yeah,
That's what I
to
mean.
retrofit it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. And that's
So you take like a 15 and you turn it down to like an 8 or 4.
That's exactly the result of this. Players not understand heard. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like just a single chip, you know, just a single chip that you can put all of it on, like kind of like what Grok's building.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the big advantage of if it was truly open sourced, then you could retrain it for any targeted chipset, right? And that's not where we are today. But if you look at, Mojo and some of the other things that are happening right now, like Mojo's targeting the idea you can write anything in Python and cross-compile to any other chipset. That's very, very promising. Unfortunately, we're not getting the source code, so it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, Mojo is not open source, so can't really trust it.
No, the language isn't open source. You're correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people learn from Java that you kind of want to have an open source language. That's very important.
I mean, the kernels are open source. There's a lot of parts of it that are open source, right? But yeah.
I know, but I think after what happened with Java and Oracle basically coming out for companies for like shitloads of money for no reason whatsoever, just because they're like, oh, you're using Java, you ought to pay us $1 billion. After that whole fiasco, I think companies have just decided let's just only use open source languages going forward.
Yeah. I think you can't tie your destiny to somebody no longer giving you software updates on a language after there are security vulnerabilities that are detected in it. That's completely fair. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about on the DeepSeek topic, or do you want to ask? How do you want to take it from here, Adrian?
I think I really like the fact that they opened up DeepSeek, right? Even if it's not open source, or even if you can't even technically call it open weight, I do really like the fact that they released it because it's more open than anything else we've seen so far. From the major companies.
It's not as open as
So-
Llama, right? Llama's the same. What?
The problem is Llama is complete ass. It's like a generation behind all the time.
Fair. That's fair.
In fact, I read like a post that said that like Llama's main advantage is that it was the best open model, or I guess semi-open model, and now DeepSeek has completely destroyed that.
Yeah.
So now Llama has to step up their game.
I always wonder, who do you think is going to, like, other than, like, the niche people who, like, compile their own Linux kernels for their machines, who's actually going to end up using it?
Who are you insulting? Yeah, I sometimes do that actually. But yeah, other than those people who what?
I'm saying, other than people who, like, are extreme nerds and compile their own kernels and make their own software,
Right.
you know, like, from scratch because they have trust issues, maybe, you know.
Or
not
the
naming any names here.
or the Davis rep.
Yeah. Other than, like, you know, the extreme folks, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how many people are actually using an open source model? Because using an open source model, okay, let me put it in two ways. How many people are using an open source model that they host themselves?
Very few. But I get your point. But I don't think that's what's important about open source models. I think the fact that there is going to be competition between different companies to host the same model and potentially offer advantages is going to be the real innovation.
Got it. So you think like Hugging Face, Amazon, Google, Microsoft will host open source models, which I think they're
Yes.
all do already, and that'll allow you to use the open source model with your data as opposed to having to use a proprietary model with your data.
Exactly, and maybe those companies can actually fine-tune them to their own purposes.
That's very fair. It's like, I see your point. So you're arguing the cat's already out of the bag. It'd be really nice if there was a nice Linux kernel equivalent that everybody could base off of, and then we can
Yes.
progress as a society.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. On that point, I agree. It would be nice because you can kind of see it, like right now, you know, PPO is like everybody knows how to do it. There's no advantage there. So for everyone to just make it easy for new competitors to just start from there, it would be interesting from like allowing more competitors into the space perspective. I think, unfortunately, we have to accept that
It also
models are
allows-
already out there, right? So there's no putting the cat back in the bag. You might as well run as fast as you can.
Yeah. It also allows the entire community to be focused on individual models, right? So let's say we come up with like an open source model that's like truly open, right? We have the data set, we have everything. Any new innovation that's made to LLMs going forward or any other type of AI that we do in the future can be added to that. And you're basically having the collective effort of all of humanity on one project, as opposed to being split up into separate projects.
So it's a bit challenging. So let me see if I can use an analogy. I've used this before. If you think of like software engineering, like software 1.0, binary compilation as a salad, and software 2.0, AI construction as a soup, it helps reason about why what you're asking for doesn't make as much sense. So in this analogy, when you're building code, you're adding things. You're always appending things, right? So you have a salad, you add more ingredients, If the salad doesn't taste good, let's say you put some rotten cherries in there, you can just cherry pick them out, and suddenly you have a salad that's edible again, right? You don't have to
I
start
guess
from
what you're
scratch.
saying, it gets bloated.
Yes.
It gets bloated sometimes.
Right, so-
It's better
no, but-
to start from scratch.
So what happens with the soup is, in this particular scenario, we're going to make up some rules. You're making a soup, and you've put too much salt in there. And I know people have, you know, family recipes for how to remove the salt without messing up the soup. For now, ignore those such family recipes. If you put too much salt in the soup, there's no way to remove the salt. You have to start over. So it's very, very important that you keep meticulous notes of your recipe. Because let's say you've been making a recipe for 30 years, it's a family recipe, and then somebody forgot how it's made. You're kind of like screwed because you can't really figure out exactly how to make it again. but you can continue to use it, assuming you can copy your soup, but you can't innovate on it. Similarly, like there are many times where people remove a bunch of steps from the recipe and then add new steps, and that is why completely different things are happening. So I would argue if you align too soon on a similar approach, then everyone's going to just look for incremental work because it's easy, as opposed to forcing people to think of completely new approaches that are leading to these leapfrogs we're seeing today.
I see what you mean. Yeah. But eventually there's gonna stop being breakthroughs as well. That's what you also have to realize. Eventually,
Is that eventuality before or after you hit SGI?
That's the question. We don't know.
Yeah, so if it happens after, it's irrelevant, right?
But then you also have the problem of is there going to be a company that's going to make SGI?
Probably, because if it's not going to be a company that makes it, there's no companies that host it.
Hold on, but I'm not familiar with SGI. What does that mean?
Oh, it's, AGI is the generalized intelligence that's similar to humans. Yeah, and then SGI it's better than humans in every category.
Super intelligence. Artificial super, ASI as well, that's another,
I think that's specific. ASI is used for acronyms suck.
I agree.
Acronyms.
Thank you.
Acronyms sucks, yes.
No, thank you for asking for the clarity on that. I know Oda and I can get lost on that. By the way, when we talked about ablation, that was brought up in the comments that people left. Maybe it's worth explaining what ablation is for the broader audience.
Basically deleting information that
it's like forgetting. It's a fancy word for forgetting or removing, but you don't really forget, you remember what you forgot. So you don't ever relearn it again.
My name is John.
And so the reason why I think the way
But
they
some people call me
is
Edmund.
quite mischievous in a sense is it is well understood in the space that you're going to end up distilling your models, right? So if you're going to distill your models, when you distill things, something that has not been ablated distills very quickly. So you don't really save much by ablating excessively before you distill something. So if they did a lot of distillation, which it sounds like they did, if they did a lot of ablation, which it sounds like they did, and then they said, hey, look at our costs, ignoring ablation, they just moved some of the costs from one section of the training pipeline to another section, and then said, look at the section that we're talking about. It's cheaper than everybody else's similar section. But we don't even know that because nobody really knows what that cost is. So I would look at the paper as saying they have tried everything they can, and they were able to get the cost down to it feels like the minimum cost is going to be $5.6 million to make a model like this, if you knew exactly everything that you had to do perfectly.
I will say
before you start.
I will say the importance of making models that are super large as well.
Yes.
Is that you can use them to build smaller models that are much better.
Almost.
So maybe we can put.
I think one of the complications is like all the things you see being quoted for DeepSeek are the R1 model, not the distilled model.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have you seen comps of the distilled model yet?
I've seen smaller versions of it that are distilled. Yeah.
No, I know I know the distilled versions exist. I'm saying, have you seen any benchmarks or LMSys rankings of the distilled model?
I have not, no.
Right? Isn't that kind of weird, given that the large model is on LMSys?
I think the problem is as well, though, is that when you do modifications like that, right? Like when you have, like in the early days when the Llama model was leaked. Remember when the Llama model was first leaked? Because of Facebook's incompetence. And then a lot of these researchers came out and they did like Vicuna and a bunch of other ones. Back then they were being trained they were being trained by universities to basically beat the benchmarks and do much better on the benchmarks. But I think as now you have hundreds, thousands of fucking versions all created by different people. It's kind of difficult to keep track of every single one of them.
So I understand what you're saying. So it'd be an interesting case study for, I think, more people to understand how LMSys works as an organization. It's run by the University of Berkeley. They've done an amazing job of never leaking any models before they come out, right? And you can imagine how top secret, like they know what everybody's progress is. If you want to know what the best model is before anybody else knows, you got to figure out somebody who works at LMSys who has loose slips. They are the keepers of all the secrets, because every model competes on LMSys and they release on LMSys, and they can release. They can actually privately test before they release a small percentage. The thing about LMSys is it's not a benchmark. It's actually streaming in user traffic and letting the user who prompted decide which result is better. So it's very difficult to fake. It's the closest thing to what you actually want to do. Now, there might be a selection bias of the kinds of users that choose to use LMSys versus, just use a bot in general. That's, obviously there's never going to be perfect data. However, like scientifically, competing on LMSys is pretty sound. Competing on benchmarks, you can never tell. Did you train on it? Did you train on derivative works of the benchmark? Why is it performing so well on benchmarks compared to other models, yet on LMSys it's not, even in the same categories? Right? That's suspect.
I will say, right, so the issue I have with LMSys is that it doesn't seem to always reflect real world things, right? So if I'm like working with both Claude and Gemini, and I can tell with my own eyes that the code that the Claude writes is much better than the code that Gemini is writing, but yet Gemini has a higher ranking. It's a bit suspicious, right? Because and you have that experience among lots and lots of people, but still
go back to the office.
You somehow have a higher ranking.
So
do you think
if you
the
go into
reason for
LMSys,
Or turn on my laptop.
so you can actually look at subcategories, and if you look at the coding category, you'll notice DeepSeek is number 2, right? So it's actually not.
Maybe I should go back to the office.
I think it may be a misunderstanding of how they're presenting the data. Not that the data is incorrect, right? Their process is open source.
In the past, I haven't looked at the LMSys recently, but there was a situation where it was ranking. I believe it was ranking Gemini above Claude, and every single person you met in real life who would use either of them would tell you that Claude's code was much better.
Yeah, so there's the overall rankings, but there's also subcategory rankings. So if you're looking at...
I'm talking about the subcategories. So you have a drop-down menu, and you can check, okay, coding, Japanese, Chinese, English, overall. You can check like that.
Yeah, and then on LMSys, they have further subcategories where you can say, like, remove things from that were rated badly because of style and whether the code compiles or doesn't compile. There's a lot of, like, you can dive deeper and deeper into it. And I think you can also send your recommendations to them, right? Like, if you think that the way they're doing things isn't fair comparison. But I would argue it's probably the best comparative approach for testing models, and testing models is very, very hard, right? They're neutral, right? Like, I think they're neutral. Like, I don't see why they would have a bias.
I'm not doubting that they're neutral. I'm saying when you have two side by side, it isn't just, I think, the fact. It isn't just the fact. I don't think that LMSys themselves is rigging any results. But I think there's a human component. There's kind of a human component, which is if you have to do two things side by side and you're comparing them, maybe potentially you would be giving the one that sounds more human a higher score, or the one that sounds more that is more nice to you.
Or the one that's more
Higher
verbose, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the one
There will be
that
biases.
explains it in
You're
more
correct.
detail.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. But there's again, the same confirmation bias applies to when you're using something that has a brand that you like, you might be more forgiving of hallucinations than when you're using something that doesn't. Right? The human psyche is affected in many ways. That's why the double-blind nature of LMSIS is great. It's more scientific. I would say if you agree with the double-blind process for medication discovery and other scientific endeavors, it should also apply to prompt rating. In any case, the main reason why I bring this up is if you see how LMSIS works and you believe the claim that it only costs $5 million to train a model to equal capacity, then the third ingredient you have to bring into the conversation is the chinchilla paper on scaling. So we know the scaling laws are train for longer, increase quality. Why didn't DeepSeek build something much, much better than standard state-of-the-art today? Because if you have a technique that has leapfrogged in cost, why not spend $10 million and make something 50% or 100% better, or even 20% better than what's out there, and prove, hey, we can actually do this cheaper. In fact, if the others are doing it for $50 million, you can come out and say,
I think I don't necessarily think that's like a fair argument though, because we saw the same thing with Meta, right, where Zuckerberg literally went out and said that, yeah, we could have made Llama 3 much better. We just decided not to because we have these hypotheses that we want to test out for future models.
yeah, I mean, that's an easy cop-out, but Facebook is also a publicly run company. They have to watch their budgets. I'm just saying the difference is Facebook was saying it cost us a lot of money to train this. And so we're going to not spend more and more money on this. We're going to try other approaches that will reduce the cost and try in the future. That's a very understandable argument. DeepSeek is claiming we reduced the cost by 100x, but we're not willing to spend 2 times what we spent. We're talking about $5 million here, right? Theoretically, it's a drop in the bucket to make a splash that is unquestionable at that point.
Yeah, but if
Like you can pass every double-blind test.
If let's say that what the cost that they're giving you, the $5 million, is just including GPU time. It's not including anything else, which they have themselves said in the paper.
Yes.
It looks like they're being kind of transparent about that. If that's the only thing they're taking into account, that would also mean that you would have to spend a lot more time on more data that needs to be labeled correctly and isn't just going to be something that you're going to be releasing. If it takes more time, if you already have something much better right now,
yeah,
why not release it now?
I mean, if you assume the rumors are that it costs about $50 million to train a state-of-the-art Llama-like or OpenAI-like model, and DeepSeek says it cost them about 6 million, 5.6 to train something equivalent. If the other parts of the costs that they're hiding, like the ablation, deletion, the iteration, all that kind of stuff, is equal to 45 million, then I think personally it is unethical to print it the way they did and then to run with a story that they're 1/10 the cost. If the ablation is only say 20% more, 30% more, then we're discussing a weird thing, right? So like if you're going to spend 5.6 million, say it was even 8 million or $10 million, let's say it was all the other costs are double the cost. They could still spend $20 million and have something today that would undoubtedly be better than absolutely everything out there, and then the humanity as a species could stop approaching AI in the old way. And they would now just say, you know what? PPO is dead. Everybody's going to go towards GRPO. You have proven that your approach works better. All hail the new AI leads, right? Instead, they didn't do that. And this is very important because they have access to existing models that can be used as teacher models. And it's so much easier to bring something up to what the teacher can do. It's much harder to surpass what the teacher can do. So if you can say that GRPO is really good at catching up to PPO, that's great, but that doesn't really do anything for us as a society, because once you have a PPO model, you already have that model. You don't need to build a second model.
Yeah, but we have seen examples like we saw with John when John came on that it does actually in some areas surpass the models that exist already.
Yeah, but law of large numbers, right? I think can all agree that if, even if you got marginally better in some subcategories,
Dr. Phil.
but you can't actually continue progress from there, that approach isn't that good. What you would say is, okay, great, we can use GRPO after the last best model on PPO. And then you only need to do that if PPO didn't get you to AGI.
Durbin is bad.
I'm just like saying from a academic point of view, it seems very, very odd to make the claim that you have something that is dramatically cheaper and then say, but I'm not going to show you that it can actually do better. I mean, it'll be very obvious within the next 6 months, right? Like, if it is in fact that much cheaper, why wouldn't they eventually bring out a more intelligent model?
Yeah, that's true.
That's like saying, let's say they spent $5 million, and had they spent $50 million, they could have got AGI. Why not do it? like how many orders of magnitude are we away?
It would be absolutely fucked if they create AGI. China creates AGI. We're cooked.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah.
They called it war. They called it one China policy for a reason.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but there's a popular hedge fund manager who posted this just recently. It's
Ray Dalio?
That's it. You got it. You know exactly what I was about to say. Do you want to say it?
Yeah, because Ray Dalio is. I didn't see what the post you were talking about is, but when you said pro-China or China, when you mentioned China, I knew immediately it was Ray Dalio because he's very bullish on China.
No. This is the opposite. So this is not him. Let me look it up afterwards. But somebody in the audience might remember exactly what the tweet is. But they basically pointed out DeepSeek is theoretically funded, not theoretically, pretty openly funded by a hedge fund. If the hedge fund clearly disclosed everything as they did, and the markets misunderstood, and they fanned the flame, and they got people to sell off a ton of NVIDIA shares. They made a ton
of money from the short.
They made a ton of money from the short, and they are a hedge fund, and that was perfectly legal for them to do. It is weird, but it is, why is a hedge fund? This is the other thing. Like, why is the hedge fund funding this? And when you ask them why they're doing it, they're like, "Oh, it's just a pet project." It's very strange. Everything about this is strange. The other strange factors are that it's happening in China. Everything is subsidized. You're correct. The $2 is actually possible, but I haven't seen it in a cloud compute offering. You were correct. It is available in some batch offerings, but it's very, very small amounts. So at the extremes, yeah, you can get a small amount of chips for a small amount of time, but that's not how training actually works. You need a lot of chips.
You also have to consider that China has significantly lower electricity costs.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the primary cost is, if you look at the cost of training a model, when people do the cost structure, it's not the electricity cost that's costing a lot of money. It's the amortized cost of the chip, right? Because you're renting something that costs $40,000.
Mm-hmm. If you're buying it, though, if you're buying it cash, you're not renting it.
Yeah, if you get the thing for free, I agree. That's not an academic paper, though. That's like saying, our model is free because we started with the solution, and therefore
it wouldn't be free because you're taking the upfront cost, though.
I guess if you were to say, let's start writing papers where everybody has the same amount of GPUs and we're going to all ignore electricity costs, who has the best approach? That would be an interesting paper, right? To say, let's ignore these things because these costs vary in different regions and various other things. But then the question I would ask you is, yes, I agree electricity cost is cheaper in China. Do you think the electricity cost for the data centers is the same as the electricity cost for residents in all other regions? Because realistically, you know, when these large companies make data centers, they negotiate the electrical rates. They negotiate everything.
Yes.
They don't pay rates that are much different than what China's getting.
I would disagree with that. I would say still China's going to be much cheaper than the data centers in the US.
Okay.
Because you also have to consider, let's say you have solar panels, right? Let's say your data centers is being run on solar panels. China is the one that makes the solar panels.
What if your data centers are running on hydroelectric power in Canada and there are many places where they have excess power?
In those cases, you still have to meet several regulations that could potentially higher the cost that you have. Where in China, they don't give a fuck about the regulations.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're just discussing like who's subsidizing more. That's not an academic paper.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. No, but the reason I bring this up is because this is kind of what happened with crypto as well. The reason why so much mining was happening in cryptocurrency and crypto in China was because of the fact that electricity was much cheaper.
Not entirely true. There are a lot of other countries where electricity was cheaper, including Canada. That's why I brought up Canada example, because there are actually places where your electricity is fully included. I think Edmonton, Alberta, or there are a few places.
It happened in a lot of. It also happened in Kazakhstan and a few other countries that were Soviet, where they had basically built places that were generating electricity that were far away from civilization.
The difference
would just go to those locations.
Yeah, but the difference with China was Bitmain is based in China, and they were the one making all the ASICs.
Yes. Yeah.
So it has more to do with they were trying to like increase the hash rate, so there was a perception of huge interest, so that more people would get involved.
There was also a lot of people mining in Iran because the Iranian government heavily subsidizes prices.
Sure. But anyway, I think we can agree. It has no bearing on like the AGI race. So anyway, thanks for the time, Adrian. I do have to go soon. I don't know if there's any last thoughts. I think you said you had some questions. I'm happy to answer them, but I should get going soon.
No, I pretty much asked all of them. He's really good with those. But yeah, thanks for coming. This is awesome. We'll clip, I think, a lot of this afterwards so people can segment this and watch it individually and digest it.
Yeah, in general, I think my big takeaway advice for everybody, whether it's this, it's fires, it's anything else, is take a beat, read the source material on your own before you read opinions.
Absolutely. Verified, not trust.
Yeah, even if it's me. In fact, I will be very happy if anybody wants to go through this space and find something I said incorrect that they can verify with source material. That would be fun. Thank you.
Because that way you can keep improving.
In fact, this would be an ongoing challenge.
So that way you can keep improving, so it's like less wrong. It's like an AI.
Yeah. Meta, you're full of shit. I will provide no evidence for this.
Aldo's gonna go create the source material.
Literally.
He's like, look, I got it from a newspaper called Source Material.
Wow.
In fact,
what is
check
your
out
source?
sourcematerial.com. It doesn't exist yet. It should.
What is your source? I made the sources that I made it the fuck up.
Well, my personal favorite, it came to me in a meme.
It came to me in a dream, yeah.
Alright, I gotta go. Bye, everybody.
Alright, see you, man.
Okay.
See you around.
See you later.
Alright. Good luck. Many more Doge savings to everybody. Bye.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. That's cool.
I see Paul down there. Maybe we can bring him up.
Sure.
Can you bring up Paul? Or...
Yeah, bring up Paulie. I want to talk to Paulie. I just keep calling him Paulie. He should probably rename himself to Paulie because of the memes. But like, Paul is pretty good too.
Yeah. What's up, Paul? How's it going?
Still alive, so happy to be here.
Wait, what?
Yeah, still.
What the fuck did you do? What do you mean I'm Tuesday? It's Tuesday, I'm still alive. What do you mean? What did you do?
I survived Monday and I survived Tuesday.
Okay. You know?
Yeah, candidly, nothing terribly exciting. I've actually been trying to get DeepSeek running locally and linked in with Cursor so I can write some interesting web scraping code for some political activity.
Jesus
Government
Christ.
websites are really poorly built.
This is probably like one of the worst things you could ever say on Spaces, but it's funny at the same time. It sounds extremely fucked, but it's also really useful and actually totally fine.
It's just amazing the data that exists that is clearly organized and structured by government agents and people that don't really care about data. The particular example, I live in New Jersey, and New Jersey has a gubernatorial election coming next year, and I was looking at the elections records, and they have them. They're published. They're in PDFs in a very strange tabular format, and it is thousands of files going back to the early 1900s, and they are all broken down by county, by municipality, and they have them sorted out in a million different weird, strange ways. So I'm trying to write a web scraper that goes in and pulls everything it can find and then extracts useful information and puts it into a more structured format where you can actually, glean insight from the data. But as it exists in PDF format, it is completely inaccessible. And I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not. I'm going to lean towards incompetence because I also have to build a sitemap for the website because they don't even have that. So yeah, it's fun.
You should have it handled by a porn site.
Right.
They do a great job of that.
It's an inside joke. What I was telling you is an inside joke. It's because the porn sites literally have better statistics and have a better method of publishing those statistics than the government that legislates them.
Yeah.
Literally. We do this
They have
sometimes.
a direct incentive there, right? They make money directly from it. The government stuff is because we have to.
I don't really think that they
Yeah, the
necessarily
other day-
have to, but it's just
The
cool to
other
have the
day
stats.
we went on a. The other day, all of us went on Pornhub, and we were looking at the stats that they publish.
Mom, I swear, we didn't look at it for any other reason. We just looked at the statistics. See here, highlights of the year. And I don't mean the videos, I mean the statistics of those videos specifically.
I do have a huge laugh. They put out a report every year, and somehow or another that's a
Even he knows.
X. And that report,
Yeah.
yeah,
Even he knows.
it's like the
He knows
funniest
about
shit. They have like a state-by-state rundown of like the weird shit that
Yes.
people are looking for.
Dude, if you want to know,
funny as hell.
if you want to know what's wrong with Germany and what like fucking a few decades of feminism does to a place, just look at fucking Germany, man. Holy shit, those statistics are fucking pathetic. That shit is really pathetic, man. And China is interesting because their specific thing is like because they don't really have porn there, they have to like go to other places to get porn from those specifically. So when they're searching it from there, they like go to Japanese porn for some reason. So they don't have local porn stars. That's why they go Japanese porn instead. I thought it was just an initial preference, like they don't like themselves, but I doubt that that's the case.
Yeah, I think that's probably this is what we can get kind of thing. I think it's funny some of the weird outliers that are in there. I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen it in a couple of years, I don't think, but there's a couple states in the U.S. that like they're the only ones on the list that have something bizarre. I'm coming up completely blank here.
What the fuck is going on in Maine? Like Maine is insane. Why is Maine insane?
They're probably like some animals or something weird like that.
I don't even know what happened in like 2023. That shit was wild. Ironically enough, I think for the statistics for 2024 were a lot saner than the statistics of 2023, which honestly, wow. Me and the bros at 3 a.m. looking at Pornhub statistics. Why?
I wonder, I mean, if you guys just looked at it, did they include any kind of year-over-year increase, decrease type data?
Yeah, they did. They did actually.
What is the biggest category that has been expanding?
These categories increase this much. This category decreased this much. Shit like that.
So what's hot and what's on its way out?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Generally, everything has increased. There's like no decreases, actually, which is weird.
Yeah, China searches for Japanese as like their main category.
What's the main category for like California again?
What was it?
Lesbian.
Like something like Mom's Next Door or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
It's gotta be water sports.
I think it was lesbian.
No. It was not no, Canada was lesbians.
Let me check right now.
California was like best friend's mom or something like
Yeah.
that.
California was actually quite vanilla, to be honest. I was expecting them to be the lesbians. Now, for some reason, the top category for Canada is lesbians. That doesn't make sense to me, but it is the way it is.
So maybe this is like a circle, and California has gone so incredibly far around
That they come
they've
back around
full
the other way,
circle,
yeah.
And what is taboo to them is
correct.
normal to other people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Blythe was correct. Friend's mom is in California.
Yeah.
It's looking wild.
I don't understand. What is the preference of friend's mom there? Why is that a thing? This is like the type of person who's watching porn videos before the entertainment, not the thing that it's supposed to do.
True.
I think it might be a power thing. They just want to fuck over people that have given them trust.
Countries,
100%.
the top 20 countries were taking 80% of traffic.
Yeah. Hang on, I find that's great. Let's do.
Also, Philippines has way more porn watchers that are women than men.
Do they have any data for countries where it's full on illegal to consume as well? I'm imagining some of the like Middle Eastern countries are probably like full on ban. You may not access this.
They do have
What are
data
they
on
like?
that, yes. It's mostly anal or Arab.
Gotcha. Not terribly surprising or exciting. What was the most shocking thing that you saw that just blew your mind and you couldn't believe it? Besides the Chinese looking at the Japanese.
Honestly, something that I anticipated, but was also very hilarious at the same time, but shocking, was the French. They like have their own categories and everything. They're so into themselves. It's amazing. They're like the most into themselves country on earth, even though they have their own issues with migrants, which is wild.
What kind of categories do they have?
I can't read them. That's the problem. Like, not because they're bad. I've no problem saying that part. It's that I can't read them because it's all in French.
I don't know French at all, but in my head I've just got baguette running around. Big old thick baguette.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Let's just reconnect here. Bligh's just dropped. Maybe bring it back up again. I'm gonna cook some steak. I'm so hungry and I need to cook a steak. Paul, have you been doing your push-ups and everything? You've been keeping in touch with the challenge? Or you've been too busy? Has DeepSeek taken your life?
I'm going to be totally honest. I have not actually been keeping up with it. I need to, and I'm just mentally drained with all the different things I've got going on. But I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel. So here's my commitment to you. I'm going to go on mute right now, and I'm going to do them. It's 15 a day, right?
Yep. Yeah, it is. Easy
I'm going to
beans.
do them right now.
In France, the most searched term was Francais. Francais by a wide
That's
margin.
it. Yeah.
showing they were interested in their own kind, both language and people. The next most searched term was hentai, which contributes to the trend of the year. In third was MILF, then amateur français in fourth.
Yeah.
It appears the term Latina got a boost of 5 spots, and anime was up a massive 22 spots. On the other hand, lesbian dropped 7 spots.
Nature is healing.
Alright, challenge complete for the day.
In France. Trending searches in France included orgasme français, up 300%, femme mature, 232%. It seems like French liked women in glasses this year, with a femme à lunettes was up 209%.
That's a strange one. Why glasses?
Cause autism, bruh. Just kidding.
I love it. So for anybody that's in the space that isn't part of the challenge or doesn't know what the challenge is, I'll let Adrian kind of explain the whole thing, but I just did 15 push-ups and it took me less than 60 seconds. So you should all get on this train and get healthy. Let's go.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Like, I chose it intentionally low so that everybody has the minimum baseline. Don't be discouraged by the fact that you're only doing the bare minimum baseline. You're engaging with the challenge in the first place. That already, like, sets you above many who are not doing it at all. So, here's the thing. I pin it up at the top of the space. You do 15 push-ups, you limit alcohol intake, ideally to none, switch to a high-protein, low-carb diet, cut out sugary drinks entirely, stop eating snacks, and that's basically it. You can also, like, do other things like walking. You can like, exercise you add on top of that if you want to exceed to the bare minimum. And waking up early is also important. Read books if you can. It's good for your attention span. Good books, not weird fucking Pulp Fiction dog shit.
You're the last person. You're the last person that lets us wake up. We can't even sleep on time, let alone wake up on time. What the fuck?
Hey, I always wake up on time because I don't sleep.
True.
I don't need to wake up because I'm never asleep.
Wish I could do that.
Although I do actually I do sleep. Like yesterday I fell asleep at a good time.
Nice.
I wanted to play some Halo, but then I was so tired I was like, nah, fuck this, I'm gonna go to bed.
Fair enough.
I was gonna like either do PvE or Halo because I was like, I'm so fucking exhausted. I can't like even do PvE. It's too much brain power. Okay, let's just go blow some aliens up. Let's play Halo. And then I was sitting here like, nope, let's go sleep.
Yeah, Halo's nice for that. Just turn your brain off and just blow shit up.
Yep. You found a mode where you don't even have to fight people. So it's like the bare minimum, man. It's fantastic.
It's pretty cool. You should join us, Paul. We're playing Halo on Steam now, Halo Infinite. Just the multiplayer. It's free to play, so.
Yeah.
I am so tempted, but I have so much shit going on in life